أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكادمية والحجج الردوية والجود الثقفية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلما أحس عيسى منهم الكفر قال من أنصاري إلى الله قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله آمنا واشهد بأننا مسلمون ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give our condolences to Fatimatul Zahra as we commemorate the martyrdom of her son Imam Husayn, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When one examines the life of the Prophet Jesus, as mentioned within the Quran, the narrations and sources outside of the Islamic tradition, one of the unique blessings that they'll find that Allah bestowed upon him was a group of companions that were unique and upright. These companions had such a status that they were not only referred to as companions, but they were given a special title. Within the English language, they were called the disciples of Jesus. And within the text of the Quran and the narration, they have been called the Hawariyun. This term Hawariyun is a term which has only been used for the disciples of Nabi Isa within the Quran. And when you look at the etymology of this word, you'll find that there is an interesting etymology. Because the word Hawari, which is the singular of the plural Hawariyun, is related to something being intensely white. And the root word refers to that whiteness, that when the pupil of an eye is very dark, then the white of the eye seems very intensely white because of the contrast. Now over here, the scholars of the Arabic language and the commentators of the Quran, they debate that why are the Hawariyun of Nabi Isa been given this word? One group of them said it is because that they would wear white clothing. Because their robes were white and their clothing was white, they were called Hawariyun. A second opinion was that these were individuals who would bleach clothing white so that there would be no stains upon them. And they were given this title because of this. A third opinion is that the word Hawariyun actually comes from hiwar, which means conversation, dialogue. And the reason they are called Hawariyun is because Nabi Isa would speak with them as he would teach them. But then there is another opinion which does not take the meaning literally. And that opinion says the reason they are called Hawariyun, yes, it is related to whiteness. But it refers to the fact that they had spiritually cleansed themselves of sins and they were individuals who were sincere. And in this regard, there's a narration of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salam, where the Imam was asked that what is the meaning of the word Hawariyun? The Imam replies by saying the people say it is that they are those who would bleach and whiten clothes. But we say they are called the Hawariyun because they are individuals who cleansed themselves of the filth of sins and they had made themselves sincere and they would guide others towards this sincerity. So you find that the Hawariyun are a group who have been mentioned within the Quran regardless of the etymology of the word. And you find that this word occurs 5 times in the Quran in 4 different ayat in 3 different passages. And there are those who argue there is an additional passage as well which mentions the disciples based on some narrations. And that is Surat Yasin when a group of messengers were sent towards a town. However, when you look at those narrations, the narrations are different from the story in Surat Yasin. But regardless, you find these individuals, whomsoever they were, whether it was John the son of Zebedee, whether it was Matthew the tax collector, whether it was Simon who was called Peter, these were individuals who dedicated themselves to the Prophet Jesus, that wherever Jesus would go, they would go. When Jesus would speak, they would listen. When Jesus would give his teachings, they would retain those teachings. Jesus would command them to go to different parts of the world, they would go to different parts of the world. You know what this goes to show is that whenever you have a prophet of Allah, there are 5 different groups around that prophet of Allah. Whether it's Nabi Isa, whether it's Rasulullah. The first of those groups who surround the prophet of Allah are those who are antagonists and enemies of the prophet of Allah. That's why when you look in the life of Ibrahim, you find an individual like Nimrud. And in the life of Musa, you find an individual like Fir'aun. And in the lifetime of Rasulullah, you find that there were enemies even from the family of Rasulullah. That when you look in the Quran, what does the Quran say? It says, Tabbat yada abi lahabi wa tab. That may Abu Lahab and the 2 hands of Abu Lahab perish. You know, in other places within Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Quran, it states that may Abu Lahab and the 2 hands of Abu Lahab perish. You know, in other places of the Quran, when Allah addresses the kuffar and the disbelievers, oftentimes the prophet is made a medium. And Allah says, Qul, prophet speak to them. In other words, when it comes to the enemies of Allah, Allah is saying that my Habib, my prophet speak to them. But when it comes to the enemies of Rasulullah, Allah addresses them directly. And He condemns them directly. And He says, may Abu Lahab and his 2 hands perish. So you find the first group of individuals who surround a prophet of Allah are those who are hostile towards a prophet. The second group of individuals who surround a prophet of Allah are those who do not believe in that prophet, but they are not hostile. When you look in the Islamic state in Medina, there were many individuals who didn't become Muslim. They didn't believe that Rasulullah was a prophet, but their rights were protected by the state and they did not create discord within the state. One example of this is chapter 5, verse 82, which mentions the Christians. It says that there was a group of Christians who lived in peace within that society. وَلَا تَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ نَصَارَى. That the closest to the believers in affection are those who say that we are Christians. So you find this is the second group. The third group of individuals who would surround the Prophet of Allah are those individuals who outwardly would say that we are believers, that outwardly we have submitted, but you find that within them there is no iman. And in the life of Rasulullah, we find the context of Surah Al-Munafiqun comes within this. But the fourth group of individuals are another group as well. And that is that group that even though they are believers, you find that their sincerity, it wavers. That sometimes they're sincere. Sometimes their sincerity is less. Sometimes they're steadfast. And sometimes they're not as steadfast. You know, the Quran addresses them. In chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, verses 38 and 39, the Quran says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. It addresses them as believers. But it says, Ma lakum. What is the matter with you? إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ إِنْفِرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. When it is told to you that fight in the way of Allah, إِثَّاقَلْتُمْ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. Your feet are heavy in the ground. And it says what? It says, أَرَدَيْتَ بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا مِنَ الْآخِرَةِ. Do you prefer this world to the hereafter? You see, this verse was revealed in the context of the Battle of Tabuk, which was to take place against the Eastern Roman Empire. The Battle of Tabuk was a very difficult journey for the Muslims, that in the middle of the summer, in the heat of the summer, they're going through the desert and they're traveling. And at that time, there were many individuals who would waver in their faith. And because of this, they would bring excuses to Rasulullah. You know, I'll never forget that there was one individual by the name of Jad ibn Qais. You know, you and I, if we're going to make an excuse, let the excuse be good. You know what Jad ibn Qais says to Rasulullah? He says that, Oh Rasulullah, when we fight the Romans, the women of the Romans are known to be beautiful. And when I see them, I won't be able to control myself. You know, the Quran, it replies in chapter 9, verse 48 to the excuse of this individual. It says, وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ أَعْذَنْ وَلَا تَفْتِنِّي. There are individuals who say that, Oh Rasulullah, give me permission to stay and do not put me in temptation. And over there, the Quran says, "Ala fil fitnati sakatu." They have already fallen into temptation and trial. So you find the fourth group of individuals around the Prophet of God are those who are believers, but they waver within their faith. But then the fifth group are those individuals who dedicate themselves to the Prophet with every means. And the Quran describes such a group in chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 100. It says that those individuals who were from the forefront, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ, from those who migrated and from the local residents of Medina, there are those individuals amongst them, radiyallahu anhum wa radu anhu, that they are pleased with Allah and Allah is pleased with them. When you look in the life of Rasulullah, you found that there were companions who would not waver upon the path of Rasulullah, individuals like Salman and Abu Dhar and Miqdad and Ammar ibn Yasir. And in this regard, we find that the Nabi Isa had a group of companions who were loyal, who were dedicated, who were called the Hawariyun. And inshallah, the subject of analysis tonight is to examine the status of the companions of Nabi Isa and link it to the status of the ashab of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Because in Ziyaratul Waritha, if we are going to address Imam Husayn and say, Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Isa Ruhillah, that salam be upon you, the inheritor of Jesus, the Spirit of Allah. One of the connections between Nabi Isa and Imam Husayn is that in the way Isa was given companions that were unparalleled and unique, Imam Husayn was given companions about whom he says, فَإِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَصْحَابًا أَوْفَى وَلَا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. That I do not know any companions who are more loyal and better than my companions. And indeed, when we start this analysis, the first place to analyze is the Holy Quran. And as I mentioned, there are three passages of the Quran which referred to the Hawariyun and the disciples of Nabi Isa. The first passage of the Quran which refers to them is chapter 3, Surah Al Imran, verses 52 and 53. The translation of those ayat is as follows. فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ إِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ. A point it came when Jesus began to sense the disbelief of the people. And when he sensed the disbelief of the people, قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, that who will be my companions in the way of Allah, who will be my helpers in the way of Allah. قَالَ الْحَوَارِيُّونَ نَحْنُ أَنصَارُ اللَّهِ. That the disciples, they reply by saying that we will be the Ansar and the helpers of Allah. Amanna, that we believe in Allah. Amanna billah, bear witness that we have submitted. And you find the ayat is mentioned within this context. Now the first thing that we take away from this passage is that this passage, it states that Jesus sensed the disbelief of the people. You know, kufr is a reality of the heart. But over here it says ahassa. The word ahsas is related to the five senses. So the question is that how did Nabi Isa sense their disbelief? One answer is that through their actions, that when they conspire against Nabi Isa, and they accuse his mother of adultery as the Jews of that time were doing, you find this in action is demonstrating their disbelief on the inward. It goes to show that when it comes to a believer, the gateway towards Iman is seen through the actions of an individual, and the gateway of disbelief is seen through the actions of an individual. That when you look at an individual like Hujr ibn Adi al-Kindi, when we look at his biography outwardly, we see this individual is a lover of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That when he was ordered to be executed, he says that execute my son before me. And they say, oh man, why is it that you want your son to be executed before you? He says that I would rather see my son die with the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib than for him to live and there be a chance that he goes to the side of Muawiyah. This individual, through this record in history, through sensing this record, we're able to get a gateway into the iman and the conviction of this individual. This ayat is saying that the actions of these individuals was such that it's as if Jesus, he sensed the disbelief of the people who were around them. So at that moment, Nabi Isa, point 2, he says, قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, that who will be my helpers in the path of Allah. You know, the question is that why did he simply not say who will be my helpers? At the end of the day, a prophet of God, a messenger of God is the representative of God. Obviously, if you are the helper of the prophet, you are helping in the path of Allah. You see, the reason the Prophet Isa does this is to incite them on that path. Oftentimes, the Quran uses expressions for God that are used to encourage an individual on the path of positivity. For example, one verse of the Quran, chapter 2, verse 245, chapter 2, verse 45, it says, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا, that who will give Allah a good loan. At the end of the day, a person who is in need is a person who takes a loan. Allah is the one who is needless and everyone relies upon Him. So why is it the Quran saying that who will give Allah a loan? The reason the Quran uses this expression is that, oh human being, sadaqah and charity is so powerful, it's as if you are giving Allah a loan. That it is a muhavara, it is an expression, it is literal. So over here when the Quran says, Man ansari Allah, who will be my helpers in the path of Allah, you find that it is an expression to encourage the people that who will come on my side. And then the third point is that the Hawariyun, they say, قَالَ الْحَوَارِيُّونَ نَحْنُ أَنصَارُ اللَّهِ. You know, it's very interesting. Jesus did not say who will be the helpers of Allah. He said who will be the helpers in the path of Allah. And then the Hawariyun reply by saying that we will be the helpers of Allah. You know what this goes to show? This goes to show that the one who has helped the Prophet of Allah has helped Allah himself. Not helping in the sense that Allah is in need, but he has helped the deen of Allah. That's why chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, verse 80, it says, وَمَن يُطِيعِ الرَّسُولِ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. That the one who has obeyed the messenger, it is as if he has de facto obeyed Allah. That the ita'at of Rasulullah is the ita'at of Allah. And the one who supports the messenger of Allah, it's as if he has supported Allah metaphorically. That's why when you look in the ziyarat of the shuhada of Karbala, we don't just say, Assalamu alaikum ya ansara Abi Abdullah. But when we address them, we say, Assalamu alaikum ya ansara Deenullah. That, O ashab of Husayn, because you supported Husayn, the Imam of that Allah has chosen, the Wali of Allah, at that moment you are not just the ashab of Imam al-Husayn, but you are the ashab of the deen of Allah. In the way the Hawariyun were the Ansar and the supporters of God, in that way the ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada, by supporting the Imam, they are those supporters of the religion of Allah. And when you look at these supporters, you find that their status was an unmatched status. Yes, the Imam says, فَإِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَصْحَابًا أَوْفَى وَلَا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. That I do not know companions better, more loyal than my companions. What was the loyalty of the ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada? You know, one of the ashab of Imam al-Husayn was Burayr ibn al-Khudayr. Burayr at-Tabari would say that he was Sayyidul Qurra min al-Kufa, that he was amongst those who was the leaders of reciting the Quran and knowledge of the Quran. It's stated that on the day of Ashura, as Burayr is fighting, there is another individual next to Burayr. And as one of the other shuhada, he sees Burayr, he sees that Burayr is smiling on the day of Ashura. So he says, "O Burayr, what time is this to be joyful? That do you not see the situation that we're in?" Burayr replies to him by saying, "O man, in my youth, I was not a person who took this world lightly. Do you think in my old age I'll be such a person? The reason that I'm smiling is because the only thing between myself and paradise is the swords of these individuals." So you see that these are those individuals in the way the ashab of Nabi Isa had conviction in the deen of Allah and they became supporters of the deen of Allah. The ashab of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam are a group. They have conviction in the message of the Imam, and by supporting the Imam, they become supporters of the deen of Rasulullah, of the deen of Allah. So you find this was the next point that we take from this ayat. Now the next ayat of the Quran, which mentions the Hawariyun, the disciples of Nabi Isa, is chapter 61, verse 14. Over there within that chapter, the Quran quotes something similar, but it gives a different address. It says, "Ya ayyuhalladina amanu kunu ansarullah." That, O you who believe, become the supporters of Allah. كما قال عيسى ابن مريم للحواريين, كما قال عيسى ابن مريم, in the way Isa son of Mary said that man ansari Allah, who will be my supporters in the path of Allah. قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله, the disciples said that we will be the helpers of Allah. And then the Quran says, فَآمَنَ طَائِفَةٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ وَكَفَرَتْ طَائِفَةٌ. That a group from the children of Israel believed, and a group from the children of Israel disbelieved. فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا عَلَىٰ عُدُوِّهِمْ. And we helped those who believed against their enemies. وَأَصْبَحُوا ظَاهِرِينَ. And they became victorious. You see, when we look at this ayat over here, the point that we notice from this ayat once again is that emphasis, that if you support the messenger of Allah, it is as if you are supporting Allah in that manner. You find the ayat is emphasizing this once again. And you know, from Surah 12, there is a verse which quotes Rasulullah saying, قُلْ إِنَّ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي, that, O Prophet, say that indeed this is my path, أُدْعُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, that I am the one who calls to Allah. You know, people, they ask the link that when we look at Imam Husayn and we say that the one who went against Imam Husayn went against Allah, what is the link? The link is that, number one, the Quran shows that to support a prophet of Allah is to support Allah. And by the opposite, to go against the prophet of Allah is to go against Allah. When it comes to Imam al-Husayn, Rasulullah says, Husaynun minni wa ana min al-Husayn. That Husayn is from me, I am from Husayn. You know, there is one virtue that Imam al-Husayn has in the sense that he is from the lineage of Rasulullah. And in that sense, it was a virtue that was given. His lineage was unmatched. You know, I'll never forget the hadith that one day Imam al-Husayn as a child, he's speaking to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And as he speaks to his father, he says, "Oh my father, who is greater, I or you?" And it wasn't out of arrogance, but over here an imam is speaking to an imam. So there is a reality which is being unveiled. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that I am greater. And at that point, Imam al-Husayn says, yes, you are greater. Your father was Abu Talib, but my father is better than your father. My father is Ali Amir al-Mu'mineen. And your grandfather was an individual who was respected. Your grandfather was Abdul Muttalib, but my grandfather is the best of creation, Rasulullah. And he says, yes, your mother was Fatima bint Asad. Your mother had a great status, but my mother is Fatima Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen. My mother is Fatima, the best of women. And yes, amongst your brothers is Ja'far, who is called At-Tayyar. But my brother is Hassan, Sayyid-e Shabab Ahlil Jannah. In that regard, my brother is greater than your brother. And Amir al-Mu'mineen says, "Oh Hussein, in a lineage you are afdal than me." So in that regard, there is one virtue that Imam al-Husayn is given, Husaynun minni. But then the second thing Rasulullah says, I am from Husayn. And here we see the link that the one who attacks Husayn on the day of Ashura, in reality, it's as if he was attacking Rasulullah. So you find this is something which becomes clear when we examine the second passage. Now the third ayat of the Quran, which mentions the Hawariyun of Nabi Isa, is chapter 5, verse number 111. And over there, Allah, He says, وَإِذْ أُوحِيتُ إِلَى الْحَوَارِيِّينَ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِي وَبِرَسُولِي, that we inspired or revealed unto the disciples that believe in me and my messenger. And over here, Allama Tabatabai mentions something interesting. He mentions that when the Quran says Allah revealed unto the disciples, it doesn't mean that they didn't believe at that point. But rather, there was a special type of belief that they were asking for. They were asking for a belief that keeps them steadfast. And over there, because they were steadfast, the Quran refers to them. You see, the Hawariyun of Nabi Isa were a group that, what was their virtue? Their virtue is that they grabbed on to the garb of Nabi Isa metaphorically. And in the way they held on to Nabi Isa made them eternal in the sense that people until today remember them. In the same way, the ashab of Imam al-Husayn, what is their greatness? Their greatness is that they sacrificed themselves for Aba Abdullah. You know, in the ziyarah, we say, Assalamu alaikum wa alal arwahil lati hallat bifinaik. That salam be upon you and salam be upon those souls that submitted themselves at your doorstep, O Hussein. You know, many people, they talk today that should we as a religion be imam-centric or should we be God-centric? You see these discussions, they go left and right. But Islam has given us a system. There is no contradiction between the both of them. Because the Imam himself was God-centric. You know, you and I as Muslims, we know that in our final moments, we say, La ilaha illallah. But I say, go and read the Maqatil. And go and look what the ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada were saying in their final moments. And tell me, was there anything they said except for Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah? Do you think the ashab don't know their tradition? But these individuals, they showed that our tawheed was Husayn. That if we hold on to Husayn, that this is that fastest path towards Allah. And in that sense, Imam al-Husayn, he speaks to them. And he says, Ayyuhal kiram, O honored individuals, Inna hadihil jannah qad futihat abwabuha, that this paradise which is closed, its doors have already been opened. You know, when you look at the Quran, and Quran speaks about paradise, it says tilkal jannah. Tilka in the Arabic language is ismul ishara lil ba'id. It's a demonstrative pronoun for something far. The Quran is saying that, oh human being, don't become complacent. It's not in front of you. But Imam al-Husayn doesn't say tilkal jannah. Imam al-Husayn says hadihil jannah. That this heaven is in front of you. That Imam al-Husayn demonstrated my status is such that if you support me, paradise comes towards you quickly in that manner. And you find in this regard, there are many narrations about the status of the ashab of Imam al-Husayn. Of course, the first narration says they are the best of companions. Imam al-Husayn says, Ma ra'aytu ashaban ka ashabi, that I have not seen companions like my companions. You know, whenever you have a religion, you need a core group that pledge allegiance to the Prophet or his successor. That's why Nabi Isa, he said, Man ansari Allah, that when all of the children of Israel were there, he says, who will be my supporters? And this was the same thing that Rasulullah did. You know, in the 12th year after Hijrah, Rasulullah, before he goes to Medina, he lives 13 years in Mecca after the proclamation of prophethood and 10 years in Medina. In the 12th year after Hijrah, a group of individuals from Medina come, 12 individuals. Rasulullah makes a treaty with them. He takes bay'ah from them, which is called the Treaty of Aqaba. And he says to them, number one, don't ascribe partners to Allah. Number two, don't steal. Do not do zina. Do not lie. Do not disobey Allah's Prophet. Do not kill your children. So you find it was the way of the Anbiya and the Awsiya that there would be a core group. Nabi Isa said, who will be my Ansar? Rasulullah took bay'ah after bay'ah at different points. And you find that while each of them, Isa would say, who will be my helpers? And Rasulullah would take allegiance. Imam al-Husayn does something different. When it comes to the Anbiya, when it comes to everyone else, they would invite their companions to come to them. But Imam al-Husayn would tell his companions to leave. That on the night before Ashura, he says that my oath towards you has already been completed. Whatever you owe me, you've already fulfilled it. Go out in the middle of the night. And at that moment they stand up, and somebody like Burair, he says that, oh Aba Abdullah, that if I live and I am killed and I'm brought back to life, then my body is burnt, my ashes are thrown, this happens 70 times, I would still sacrifice myself for you. Much less one time. You see, others would invite their ashab to come. Imam al-Husayn would tell them to leave, but they would stand up. Zuhair would say, 1,000 times I would give my life for you, O Aba Abdullah. So you find it's not surprising that number one, when they have this status, you find at the second level, there are hadith which show what their spiritual status is as well. You know, in one narration, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Imam as-Sadiq is asked by an individual, Akhbirni an ashab al-Husayn wa iqdamihim al-maut. That tell me about the companions of Husayn and their condition as death was approaching them. You know what the Imam says? The Imam says, Kushafa lahumul ghita. The same line Ali ibn Abi Talib said, the Imam says the veils were removed for them. Hatta ra'o manazilahum min al-jannah, until they saw their status in paradise. Imam Zainul Abidin in another narration says that Imam Husayn on the day of Ashura, he says that look towards the skies and each of them saw that position. And one reality of this is found in another narration. Because another narration describes them as Sayyidu Shohada. You and I, we think that only Imam al-Husayn is Sayyidu Shohada. But there is one hadith where Rasulullah says that Hussein will be killed وَتَنْصُرُهُ إِصَابَةٌ مِّنْ أُمَّتِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, that there will be a group of Muslims who will help him. أُولَٰئِكَ سَادَاتُ شُهَدَاءِ أُمَّتِ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, and these individuals will be the leaders of the Shuhada. So you find these individuals were given an immense status at the second level in the way the Ashab of Nabi Isa were given a status. Now when we come to the final aspect of this discussion, the third thing that we see about the Ashab of Nabi Isa is that there are a number of narrations as well that describe the interaction of Nabi Isa with his companions, as well as mention Nabi Isa and his companions. The first of those narrations is that Ibn Abbas comes to Rasulullah and he says, "Oh Rasulullah, how many leaders will be there after you?" Rasulullah says that the leaders after me will be the same as the disciples of Jesus. And they will be the same as the chieftains of Banu Israel. And they will be the same as the number of tribes that were there with Moses. So he says that how many were there? You find that he mentions 12. So you find that this is one narration. Another narration, it says that from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, in that narration, the Imam says that the disciples of Jesus were the best of people at that time. They were 12 men who were unmarried, and they would go quickly to Allah and His Messenger. They were not weak, nor were they arrogant, nor was there pride within them. Over here from this narration, one thing which you see that is universal amongst the qualities of the companions of the prophets and the imams is humility. To the extent that Luqman, when he gave advice to his son in chapter 31, verse 18, Luqman, he says, وَلَا تُسَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ, that do not turn your neck away in arrogance away from the people. One of the biggest issues of the Arabs was arrogance. When Salat came down, they said to Rasulullah that, "Oh Rasulullah, you asked us to fast, we fasted. And you asked us to give charity, we gave charity. But we will not perform this Salat." They said, "What do you mean you won't perform this Salat?" They say, in this Salat, there is an action where our backside is higher than our head. You see the level of arrogance over there. But Rasulullah demonstrated that those who follow me and my Ahlul Bayt have humility. And one example of that is Malik al-Ashtar. Malik al-Ashtar was the commander during the governance of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Malik al-Ashtar was an individual who was a little bit darker skinned. So one individual, he takes a seed of a date, he throws that at Malik. He doesn't know it was Malik. So the people, they go up and they say, "Do you not know that you threw a seed at the commander of Ali ibn Abi Talib? The commander of the Khalifa, you threw a seed at him." So he goes and he's searching for Malik. He sees Malik is in the mosque. He waits for Malik to come out. And he says, "Please forgive me, I didn't know who you were." Malik says, "Oh man, the reason I came to this mosque is to pray 2 units of prayer so I could ask Allah to forgive you." So you find that the narration mentions that the quality of the Ashab of Nabi Isa, humility. And the way the companions of Ahlul Bayt, they demonstrate humility as well. Now another narration, a third narration which mentions the disciples of Nabi Isa, within it, it stated that one day Nabi Isa says to his disciples that there was a man who was carrying wood. And as he saw the man who was carrying wood, Nabi Isa says that man will die today. The disciples are astonished that it's a strange statement. You saw somebody walking and you just casually say that man's going to die. Later on, they saw that the man was still alive at the end of the day. So they say, O Isa, why is this man alive? Nabi Isa says, O man, that wood which you have, make it spread apart, begin to move it. When he began to move it, the companions saw that a snake came out of that wood. At that moment, Nabi Isa says, Oh man, what action did you do today in the way of Allah? Because today was the day of your death. The man says, the only thing I did in the way of Allah is that I had 2 loaves of bread. One of them I gave to a beggar. Nabi Isa says, this is the reality of charity. So you see, in this manner, Nabi Isa would speak with his disciples. He would speak with his Hawariyun. He would give them lessons. And in the same way, Imam Husayn would give lessons to his Hawariyun and his Ashab. You know, one of the most famous lines of Imam Husayn is where the Imam says, An-nas abidud dunya, that people are slaves of this world. وَالدِّينَ لَعِقٌ عَلَىٰ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ يَهُوتُونَهُ مَا دَارَتْ مَعَايِشُهُمْ, that religion is something which just circulates upon their tongues as long as their livelihood is secure. وَإِذَا مُحِسُوا بِالْبَلَاءِ قَلَّتْ دَيَانُونَ, and when hardships come, you'll find that the religious people are very few upon this earth. You see, this statement that Imam al-Husayn gives to his disciples is a very profound statement. You know, at one level, there are many narrations and statements in the Islamic tradition that say that the dunya is something negative. Have you not read the ayat of the Quran? وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ, that the life of this world is just a delusion and entertainment. But at the same time, there's an interesting question. And that question is this, is that we as human beings naturally are inclined to this world. That there is not a person who naturally wants to die and leave this world. So why is there this contradiction? On one side, the dunya is bad, but on the other side, there is a natural inclination. The first answer to this is that when these ayat are saying that this dunya is negative, or this hadith says dunya is negative, it is referring to the lowly aspects of this dunya. But there is another ayat of the Quran that says, Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha, that whoever acts righteously, whether male or female, wa huwa mu'minun, and he is a believer, fala nuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyiba, that we will give him a pleasant life. If this world was negative, the Quran wouldn't say we would give a pleasant life. And in this regard, there are even many narrations that praise this world, because this world is a wasila towards Allah. Amir al-Mu'mineen would say that this dunya is the masjid of the anbiya of Allah. And this dunya is the marketplace of the awliya of Allah. And in that sense, you find that this reality is there. And when we look at those individuals who made the most of this world, you find the companions of Imam al-Husayn were there. That when you look at each of them to the best of their capacity, they gave their maximum effort for Imam al-Husayn. You know, there was one individual by the name of Sa'id ibn Abdullah or Sa'id ibn Jubair. The Maqatil differ on the name. But what they don't differ on is who this individual was. It's stated that this individual was an old man, to the point that he had to wear an idar, a qamar band, a piece of cloth to keep his back straight. And he comes to Imam al-Husayn and he says, Oh Husayn, this body doesn't have energy to fight. But what this body has energy for is that it can stand in front of you as you pray towards your Creator. Sayyid ibn Abdullah, he stands in front of Imam al-Husayn, and as Imam al-Husayn prays, arrow after arrow is going into the body of Sayyid. Sayyid stands in his place until the prayer is finished and he falls to the ground and he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Now do you see why the Imam says there were no companions like my companions? That somebody like Abis ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri, He says, "O Hussein, if I had anything greater than my life, I would give it in your path." Somebody like Habib ibn Madahir would look and he would say that you allow pigs and dogs to drink from this Furat, but you don't let the grandson of Rasulullah drink from it. Somebody like Zuhair ibn Ul Qayem, that he speaks to the people and he says to them that you are sacrificing your religion for Ibn Ziyad and Yazid. Do you prefer the son of Marjana to the son of Fatima to Zahra? At that point, Shimar says, "O Zuhair, you and Hussein will be in the fire of hell." At that point, Zuhair says, "No, the reality is that you will be over there. And life, death with Hussein is better than an eternity if I was given it with you, O Shimar." You see, the ashab of Imam al-Husayn displayed such selflessness that as long as they were alive, nothing happened to the family of Imam al-Husayn. But then that moment it comes that each of them are gone. Abis is gone, Muslim bin Osaja is gone, Habib is gone. And that moment it comes when only the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah are there. You know who was the first individual from the Ahlul Bayt to go? Imam al-Husayn sends the most difficult test for him when he says to his son Ali Akbar, "Taqaddam ya waladi." You know how great is the musibah of Ali Akbar. You know, there was a reciter that he recited, before reciting the musibah of Imam al-Husayn, he says that in my dream I saw Imam al-Husayn. And I saw that his body was covered in wounds. After that night, I recited the Masaib of Imam al-Husayn. And again in my dream at night, this time I saw the Imam again. And when I saw him, his body was clear except for two wounds. There was one wound on his chest, there was one wound on his back. So he says, "O Mawla, what is this?" The Imam says that whenever my followers cry over me, it heals me. But the man says, "Why is it then that there are two wounds, one on your chest, one on your back?" The Imam says, "Oh man, there are two sources of pain from the day of Ashura, that no matter how much you remember them, they'll never go away. The one on the chest represents my son Ali Akbar, and the wound on my back represents Aba Fadl Abbas." You know how difficult is the masayib of Ali Akbar. You know, whenever a mother, her son doesn't come home, that mother doesn't have peace at night. That mother doesn't sleep at night. But upon the day of Ashura, a moment it came when Ali Akbar, he goes towards his mother Layla. And he says, "Oh mother, do I have permission to go towards the Maqtal?" Layla says, "Oh Akbar, you are my heart, oh Ali Akbar." Ali Akbar says, "Oh mother, what will you say on the day of judgment? If you tell me not to go, Ali Akbar won't go, oh mother. But what will you say on the day of judgment when Rasulullah asks you, was Hussein more beloved towards you or Ali Akbar more beloved towards you?" No, Ali Akbar is that individual that when Ali Akbar goes to the battlefield, Imam al-Husayn says, "Allahumma ishhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm قد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك." That I am sending the one who resembled Rasulullah more than anyone else. You know, as Ali Akbar was leaving the tents, Hamid ibn Muslim, he says, I would watch the curtain of the tent. And as I would watch the curtain of the tent, it's as if a janazah was being taken out of the tent. The curtain would open, and as Ali Akbar was leaving, one of the women would pull Ali Akbar back. But as I was watching the scene unfold, I saw that somebody grabbed the shirt of Ali Akbar. And I began to think, who would grab the shirt of Ali Akbar? Because if it was somebody older, they would grab the shoulder of Ali Akbar. But as I looked closer, it was a little girl. She would hold on to the kurta of her brother, and she would say, Irham ghurbatana ya Ali Akbar. Oh Ali Akbar, have rahmat upon this ghurbat of ours, oh Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, he goes to Imam Husayn. You know, Imam Husayn says, Ali Akbar, you have permission, oh Ali Akbar. But Akbar, as you're fighting, keep turning around so your father can do the ziyarat of your face, oh Ali Akbar. At that moment, Ali Akbar, he gets upon the horse. But as he's upon the horse and he's moving, he hears that footsteps are coming behind him. So Ali Akbar, he turns around. What does Ali Akbar see? Ali Akbar sees Imam Husayn, ek booda baap apne haath kamar pe rakhe hue. He sees that Imam Husayn is standing there. Ali Akbar says, Baba, aapne to ijazat de di thi, that you had given me permission. The Imam says, Akbar, tum sahib-e aulad nahi ho, Ali Akbar. Oh Ali Akbar, you don't have children. You don't know what it's like, oh Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, he goes to the battlefield. When Ali Akbar goes to the battlefield, one maqtal, in great detail, it describes what Imam al-Husayn was doing. It says, فَوَقَفَ فِي نَشَّةٍ مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ. Imam al-Husayn went to an elevated spot in the land of Karbala. فَنَظَرَ إِلَى وَلَدِهِ عَلِيٌّ الْأَكْبَرِ. And Imam al-Husayn is watching Ali Akbar fight. And then it says, وَجَلَسَتْ لَيْلَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. And as Imam al-Husayn is watching Ali Akbar, the mother of Ali Akbar would sit on the ground, وَتَنْظُرُ إِلَى وَجْهِ الْحُسَيْنِ, and Layla would watch the face of Imam al-Husayn. If Imam al-Husayn was joyful, she would know Ali Akbar was safe. And if Imam al-Husayn was worried, she would know Ali Akbar is in difficulty. A point it comes when Ali Akbar is surrounded from all sides. There is worry on the face of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Layla says, Oh Aba Abdullah, is our Ali Akbar in difficulty? The Imam says, Oh Layla, all I can say is that the dua of a mother is accepted. My grandfather Rasulullah told me this. Layla, she raises her hand. She says, Ya Radda Yusuf ila Yaqub wa Ismail ila Hajra. Urdud ilayya waladi al-Ali. That oh, the one who returned Ismail to Ibrahim. Oh, the one who returned Yusuf to Yaqub. Return my Ali Akbar. You know, at that moment, Ali Akbar, he returns. And when Ali Akbar returns, he says one line which is enough for Masaib. Ali Akbar says, Ya abate al-atashu qad qatalani wa tiqlul ja'a hadid ka ajhadani. That, oh Father, this armor is heavy, oh Father. And oh Father, the thirst is killing me. The Imam says, Oh Ali Akbar, place your tongue within my mouth. mouth. The moment Ali Akbar places his tongue in the mouth of Imam Husayn, he says, "Oh father, your mouth is drier than mine." The Imam says, "Oh Ali Akbar, go. Your grandfather will give you from the pool of Kauthar, oh Ali Akbar." Ali Akbar, he goes for the final time, and as he's fighting, a point it comes. That one arrow goes into the chest of Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, he falls towards the ground. Imam al-Husayn is called. He goes to the body of Ali Akbar. You know what Imam al-Husayn does at the body of his son? He does something which he doesn't do anywhere else. The Maqtal, it says, فَوَضَعَ خَدُّهُ عَلَى خَدِّهِ. Imam al-Husayn, he sits on the plain of Karbala. He places his cheek on the cheek of Ali Akbar. And he says, "Ala dunya ba'daka al-afa," that Ali Akbar, tumhare baad ye dunya khaak ho jaye ya Ali Akbar. That, oh Ali Akbar, may this world become dust after you. But then that moment it comes. The Imam sees an arrow in the chest of Ali Akbar. You know, when Ibrahim was commanded to slaughter Ismail, Ismail said, "Oh Baba, put a blindfold upon your eyes." And he said, "Oh Baba, I'll turn my face away so you don't have to see." I say, "Oh Ibrahim, look at Hussein in Karbala. That Hussein sits by the body of Ali Akbar. He places one hand on the arrow. He places one hand on the chest of Ali Akbar. He begins to pull that arrow. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." It says that he looks towards Najaf. He says, "Oh Baba, lifting the door of Khaybar was easy. Look at your Hussein in Karbala." That he takes an arrow out of the chest of his son. Ala la'natullah al-qawm al-dhalimin. Mata min Hussein.